by their core picks. We haven't even seen their other cores beyond the Ember Spirit, which is just again another solid laner. They need to tie this draft up a bit better. I think you should look at really going to be the one to counteract this. So there are a couple of options there. They did ban out the Batrider themselves, so that's not going to be cool. And I think for the most part, maybe you go with something a bit more stable. Maybe you look at something like the Centaur, just to give yourself that solid stun with the Shaker. You do have some burst potential in that laning phase with the Silencer, so that is something a droid can try playing around. They go with the Legion Commander, so that gives them some additional lockdown for the Ember Spirit. You jump in, get the duel off, and Ember's stuck there. Early on, his damage is coming out from spell usage, so if you can get that duel, you have two scaling heroes that can build off of that. The LC wins the duel, Silencer steals some int, everyone's gonna be happy, but you have to play around that duel. And it's not easy to get that duel off on a hero like Ember without a Blink or Shadow Blade. So that does take some time. And it's a slow time because it's not an immediate pickup for most LCs.
Not to mention, LC into Keeper of the Light is not always the greatest matchup, right? Because you get a duel off, Lightning Light comes out, suddenly you do nothing in the duel. GEEK fam go into the Pugna now. The Crepify really sucks when you're trying to get a duel off. It's a good LC game, like you said. You catch the... That's what you want. There is essentially free duel damage in the Coddle as well, and the Pugna. You catch them with the duel, you're getting free damage. Simple as that. Okay. ADROIT go for the Lycan. I don't know how to feel about it. Like, this is into... He doesn't really have other friends that push well with him. So they're really relying on that Lycan alone to provide that push potential. But into a Pugna, a Keeper of the Light, and an Ember Spirit, all these three heroes defend high ground really, really well up against Lycan creeps. Like, it's not that big of a problem.
Nah. And even the Clockwork is pretty darn good against a Lycan. Like, you get the cogs off, he's kind of stuck there, and he gets pushed back. You don't tend to farm a fast BKB on Lycan, just tends to not be a priority. So that's something that's going to be a consistent issue for ADROIT. Now, this does give them a bit of an earlier timer. This does give them a way to take those objectives, but as you mentioned, the Keeper of the Light can already deal with that. Ember Spirit can already burn through your creeps. Pugna can just decrep whoever you're running at, or just Nether Blast your creeps. So the response is there in GEEK Fam's draft. A lot of value from that Pugna pick with his Lycan pick for ADROIT. They need something to tie it in. And the thing about these picks from GEEK Fam is that ADROIT supports... The Shaker can do something, but Silencer in this case is really just starting to look a bit lackluster, especially with that Pugna. Like, you get the decrep off, Silencer actually can't do anything. Like, he can't damage, he can just cast his spells, which is fine in the laning phase, that's really potent. As you go past that point, you just lack a lot. Like, you're taking away the threat potential from the right clicks that Silencer has from stealing his int as well, so...
5 seconds.
ADROIT has to pull something out here for the last pick. The Storm Spirit was banned out by GEEK Fam. I like that. It's certainly something their supports don't deal with well, although you do have the Pugna to kind of burn through his mana just a bit. But the Keeper of the Light and Clockwork don't have the best stuns to keep that hero in place, so it's a smart ban out for GEEK. But I'm not sure what the ADROIT can pick to fill in that gap. They go with... Still goes in and out. It's into a Pugna. See, that's terrifying as well. Like, her mana, her spells cost huge mana, especially her ult. And if there's a Nether Ward around, we've seen Queen of Pains kill themselves to that Nether Ward.
It is nice into the Ember though, right? Like, in terms of laning phase, when you're up against the Ember, Shadow Strike is so infuriating for the Ember Spirit. Sure, you've got Flame Guard, but it's still, that slow is ridiculous. And I think that's the idea here for ADROIT. They're just gonna be able to really shut down Carl's Ember, assuming Carl does go mid, which I believe he will be mid on the Ember. GEEK Fam, they do still have one pick to try and counter this Queen of Pain, and like you already mentioned, the Pugna Nether Ward is going to be really, really dangerous for this quad. And now we have an Underlord. Even better D-push, great against the Lycan, destroys him in lane, sort of you don't say completely destroys him, but it makes it a lot harder, for sure. Who came out with the better draft, John?
Geek Fam.
Okay.
Just for me, it's Geek Fam. It's the control they got. It's the D-push they have up against this kind of lineup ADROIT has. There are ways for ADROIT to make this draft work. It's a very specific case. They have to play it near perfectly. Key thing is get Bok big. Have this guy win his duels. Have him be a massive threat. This is one of those games where you would actually say Blink Dagger or Shadow Blade first on Legion Commanders, not too bad. A lot of teams have been putting that in the sideline, but you want to build off with Bok here and CML. You want CML to be around to sap some of that int, sap some of that potency away. You do have Mac who can help you win those duels. You do have to worry about, we mentioned earlier, Keeper of the Light. Pugna does kind of interrupt that. So a lot of factors in play. There are ways for ADROIT to make it work. It's just easier for Geek Fam to run over. You know, their draft is just so much easier to pull off.
With that, John, we are going to go into the draft and a really fun game between these two. Of course, a lot of pressure here on ADROIT to really try and pull off this victory. Geek Fam, one game ahead. Love to get a 2-0 victory up against ADROIT and proceed through the low. Winner of this is going to be up against Boom Esports. So no matter who wins this, it is going to be a pretty hard matchup waiting for them across the next bracket. But we don't think about that for now, right? You've just got to get through this series first, because the loser does get knocked out.
It's a situation for ADROIT where they are up against the wall, one game behind. They need to win game number 2. And Geek Fam, well, they have a lot more leeway now, but you'd still want to just close it out. And again, their draft is just looking really solid. Something we didn't point out, they're actually going with Carl mid on the Pugna to counteract that Quap matchup.
I don't mind that. Pugna can be very, very infuriating to play against, because you will have the Zephyr clockwork, and we always talk about the POS 3 clockwork not being the greatest POS 3. Like, we always talk about how it should probably just be played as a position 4. And so it does make me happy to see that Geek Fam aren't giving that much priority over to the clockwork, who can do everything without really requiring that amount of farm priority.
Yeah, it's gonna be something else to watch out for, I think, is his lane partnership with level 1 battery assault. You do have some potential. I think you would have to wait for level 3 on Cuckoo if he's going to stay up top. You don't tend to invest in early pits of Malice.
The battle begins.
Looks like it might be a 2-for-2 barrier in trade. Booming gets a nice fish drop, which is going to help Bok chase down White a bit more, but he'll be fine. Let's get out of there. Bok actually takes a fair bit of damage himself and actually is forced to go for the overwhelming odds at level 1. Not exactly your most preferred skill at level 1 as an LC, but that's what he's going to be dealing with.
I think that's fine. It gives you a lot more damage potential in that lane. It is fairly costly, so you will have to think twice about using it every single time, but it does allow you to shove out a wave, apply some damage on Whitemon and Raven, and that should just make these initial levels for Raven just a bit, well, not too much more challenging. It's still an Ember Spirit. Be able to hold its own by the time you hit level 2 even in this case.
Of course, mid lane, you do see Mac up against Carl once again. Mac finding himself with a nice little advantage early on. Carl should be able to catch up a little bit with these creeps underneath his tower. He actually did end up going for the level 1 Nether Ward as well, so just really wanting to make it a little bit more challenging for the Mac Queen of Pain. But we are going to have a very early rotation here from Boomy. Carl is about half HP right now. Does drop the Nether Ward, but that's definitely not going to save his life if they do make the jump. Mac may just ask to wait for level 3, though no. The Fisher doesn't connect, and Boomy doesn't get the block off. Carl is sticking around, though. Carl, you need to get out of there. He will just wait out the Fisher. Boomy does give him quite a bit of harass. Carl, at least he does have 2 tangos remaining. So it should be okay.
Yeah, it's just a bit of time wasted for Boomy. You would have loved to see that kill. You did invest in early boots of travel, boots of speed on that Shaker just to get these rotations out, so just missing out on that will hurt you a bit. This is something that Boomy always kind of does though, just early rotations to try to build up for himself on a very active pause 4.
We haven't seen any rotations yet from Zephyr, but that's mostly because he's at level 1. I suppose that's the real difference here in an Earthshaker pulse for and a Clockwork Boomy. Again, not the greatest fisher. Carl, although it is still making him lose quite a bit of CS here to Matt, the fact that he isn't dying is pretty big. Like, as a pugner, you don't really care too much about gold, more so than you do XP, because Pugner's really effective without the gold anyway. Like, he just needs levels.
For sure. It's like, he's still finding what he wants, even if he's not finding those last hits. Should be able to apply some pressure on that tier 1 soon. Does have a level advantage over Mac, even if it's just a bit, so he's got himself pretty nicely set up, and Mac actually just drops very low from exchanging here.
Fine. Carl, he wants this. We saw this last game. He did die doing this. Never Blast gonna miss, and yeah, he's dead. Screen comes in though, no. Nice aggro on the T1. He gets the kill!
Oh! Carl!
Oh, that was really nice by Carl. Like, I thought we were gonna have a repeat of game 1 where he died with the lean on the mid T1 tower. But the aggro was real quick as the creep wave was running in. And the one to misplay it is apparently Mac on the Queen of Pain.
Yeah, just a lot more going the way of Carl. He even forces out the rotation from CML, so he is wasting a bit of time there down mid. Does find Zephyr to trade blows with, but I think Zephyr's going to be fine with popping that battery assault to get some damage on.
Kind of intrigued that Zephyr went for the rocket flare at level 1, to be honest with you. If he's using the cogs, usually quite effective on a roaming clockwork, having those level 2 cogs up. Cogs up at level 2, but does opt to try for the rocket flare instead.
I think that might have been down to the fact that they weren't sure if they were going to find that Mac kill, so they had a rocket on standby in case he was around that area. With 80 damage, that might have been enough to clean up. He was fairly low.
It does make him suffer a little bit in this safe lane of the Dire though, right? Because right now, if we had cogs, that would have been a kill. It may still be one. See him getting chased down, he does get it.
Still makes it work.
Even with trying to just force Natsumi not to get last hits, like that cogs pushback when he does go in for a CS is also very, very nice to have, but apparently Zephyr doesn't need it.
Yeah, he's just making it work as is. I think that's perfectly fine. He will have it by the time he hits level 4 for sure. And he's just about halfway, so the EXP progression for our clock is definitely up there. You compare that to Boomy's progression, he's at level 2 as well, but much further behind from that level 3 turning point. It's not good progression. He has been investing a lot of time down mid to no real success. And this is going to be a constant issue for ADROIT. They're not finding the XP they need on Boomy's playmaking hero. They're not really winning out on pretty much most of their lanes. The only one that's going fine is that top lane, but Cuckoo with his Firestorm should be able to just maintain some farm parity there.
3 hero rotation on the one. He does go down. Who claimed the kill. They didn't have Jewel available. I thought perhaps they're making this early rotation to get some nice Jewel damage in. But it wasn't the case, and now Zephyr gonna chase down Boomy a little bit, but CML is gonna be there to help. Zephyr will just gladly walk out for free. A lot of priority there to kill the Coddle. I don't really think they'll mind losing the Coddle like that. Wyman, he'll just run his way back.
I think it's down to the fact that ADROIT does feel some pressure to find these early kills. Like, you have Boomy and the Shaker. He has been walking around the map. They do want to find something, and they finally did. But again, it's not a high priority kill. White One doesn't really care too much, and the side lanes are still going okay for GEEK fam. Like, that top lane is probably the best lane for ADROIT. Even then, Cuckoo's just kind of maintaining it with that Lycan anyway. So it's fairly even, all things considered.
And we do have a disconnect from Whiteman. He'll be back pretty soon, I'm sure. Apart from that, all props to the Ember. Raven having a great old time. 42 last hits, 13 denies. Closely followed by the Queen of Pain, Mac at 34 and 6. And of course, you do have Carl there on the Pugner at 33 and 7. Outlier right now is Natsumi, who's really fallen behind the Ember. 32 and 7 on the Lycan. And of course, it's going to be due to the fact that he is up against an Underlord, and Cuckoo with a Trophy Aura is just, I mean, it's just such an obnoxious ability to have. It's so impossible to last hit up against an Underlord with that Aura up. And looks like he may just commit to going to the jungle for a bit as that Lycan. That is something you can do, to be fair. We are approaching that 7.5 minute mark, so neutrals are going to start dropping, neutral items are going to start dropping very soon. Maybe he gets lucky and finds, you know, something like an Iron Talon and helps him farm even faster.
Yeah, he's at a pretty decent pace anyway. About to finish that Dominator. So he does have a pretty good time in the jungle now. I think this is the perfect time for him to dip in. Just about, what is that, 15 gold away, 16 gold away. So once that's up, jungle farm is going to accelerate. Should hit level 6 around that point as well, or shortly after the Dominator. And that should allow ADROIT to start applying that pressure they need. Right? They haven't really applied too much pressure on the heroes of GEEK. We did see, for the most part, Boomy tried to do it down mid, but the Fishers just weren't keeping Carl in place. You don't really see any pressure at all in Raven, top of the last hits board now. There's really just not much you can expect from Bach to get done there. And overall, just a pretty smooth start for GEEK Fam. It's not an overwhelming win in the laning phase for them. Like, there are still opportunities here for ADROIT. I don't know, every time I just look at Boomy and that he's at level 2, even the Keeper of the Lights ahead for Shaker, that's definitely not where you want that pause 4 Shaker to be in. He has to be a bit greedier, he has to get a little bit more EXP, he's just behind.
It is problematic, especially considering with this draft that ADROIT has, he's a lot quicker than GEEK Fam. You could make the argument that GEEK Fam's draft doesn't exactly scale well either. I don't know though, like you're going to have to push into an Underlord, a Pugner, and an Ember. It's never going to be fun doing that. So, you want to really get to that point where you can push high ground before they're at the point where they can defend so easily. Still waiting on Whiteman to reconnect on the Keeper of the Light. I suppose because we do have a pause. No, never mind. Never mind. Reconnection is going to be back. Thought I was going to have to bring out the mukbang casting again, Johnson. Not tonight.
I am hungry as well. But it's spot out. CML.
Gets caught there by Carl, and Carl has a hatred, so he moves forward to Matt. Not going to be enough. Of course, Matt can just blink away. This is a really nice start for the Pugner. Currently sitting at 2-0 at 7 minutes in, and just continuing to find more farmer. Is substantially behind in CS, but again, it's all about the levels for this hero.
He's finding it. He should be able to apply a lot more pressure on this mid-tier 1. You already see some investment from ADROIT to keep that area in check. They do catch Sephiroth out.
And he has no cards. This is a problem. So, what is there for Natsumi, though? His wolf expires. That's unfortunate. And they actually don't chase him down.
No punishment coming out. He just can't.
Raven was jeweled up. They do bring Mac in and get the Sonic Wave to really finish him off. Boomy was the one to claim that kill on the Earthshaker. Now Whiteman also goes down on the Keeper of the Light. Bok will be the one to get that one. Nice rotation from Mac. If he hadn't been there, that definitely would not have landed him a kill.
They really needed those early kills. They just gave way too much space towards Raven. They didn't manage to get a dual win onto box, so that's a bit of a shame, but you're not going to be too upset. You still found 2 targets that were having a free time. That does kind of just take back a little bit from Geek Fam's nice start, and you do at least get some more EXP onto Boomy, inching towards that level 4, is saving up for the Blink Dagger, and he is getting priority for the Tome. So he should be able to do a lot more as we approach that 10-minute mark. I think the Blink is going to be a bit slow for a pause for Shaker though.
Dire are scared.
He's crying. We actually blink out to the top lane because Cuckoo has been forcing this lane in, and he did find that tier 1 top tower. It's always a threat of an Underlord, isn't it? Like, you've always got to be careful about what Cuckoo's up to. With that bonus damage he gets from a trophy aura as well, he does push pretty quick. So if you don't respond to the Underlord, he will just continue to take down towers and farm up these creep waves freely.
He's not been contested, pretty much. So when you leave him alone like that, he will just melt right through. He has been farming up quite nicely, although it's not too amazing, but it's an Underlord. You can't really ask for much more. In fact, he is pressuring Boomy out. So they at least have the Shaker up there, but you expect the Droid to actually be the one doing this, right? They have a level 7 Lycan, they have the Dominator up. You want them to start taking the objectives. They haven't quite found themselves ready to commit that hard yet.
Well, I think you're at least going to have to find one pick-off before you can. There's just so many answers to stopping the push on Geek Fam with their draft. I just don't think you can afford to make the push if you aren't at least going through a 5v4. They're going to try now. Matt jumps in, but that's so much damage coming out. Carl picks up a kill, they get a duel off onto Zephyr, and they'll win that duel. It's a 1-for-1, and now they will go on to Carl. He does have to crepify now as Chakra Magic comes in, and Peter Mallet will be dropped. So supports go down. Each team gets a free kill for themselves, but the problem with for ADROIT, they're not finding any objectives.
No, they had to expend a shapeshift on Natsumi to find a clockwork kill. They don't manage to find the outpost. They didn't push a tower down. This is playing against what ADROIT would like to do with his draft, although they are still clumping up on that bot tier 1. There's no real targets to kill off. They could take the tower. There is Whitemon to punish.
Well, Matt should be able to kill one, but he just TPs. Sonic Wave will be enough, Matt.
Is under attack.
Had enough of these shenanigans. That'll open up that bot tier 1. Raven, however, finds CML, so 2 supports going down, 1-for-1 again. You don't really want to take a bot tier 1 for a mid tier 1. It's not a great trade for ADROIT. Boss will be the only one to defend now. He gets chained up. This could be very, very bad. Light Train would decrepify, but they can't knock him down. He'll be okay. But they are going to lose that mid tier 1 tower.
Has fallen.
Not the best trade in the world for ADROIT. Like, they do take an objective. It's not a very major objective at this point. Geek Fam is not too concerned about that bot lane. Giving away your tier 1 down mid, of course, is much bigger. Geek Fam, they already have the tier 1 up top. This is going to open the far reaches of that top jungle, which means that you're going to be limited in the areas where Natsumi can farm. He is starting to farm the opposing jungle, so that's really the only thing you can hope for. Boomy is caught out. And gone.
Yeah. And that's the strength of the Geek Fam draft, though. They find you with Rocket Player and they just kill you. Zephyr didn't even hookshot for that.
Yeah, just walked up, found it, and took him away. You do have pretty good farm all of a sudden on Boomy though. 1.5k in the bank. So he is inching towards that blink, and the one thing with ADROIT is they play slow like this. They try to buy space for their pause for. The moment the blink's up, that's when they kick it into gear. So perhaps that's just what they're waiting for in this game. A lot of pressure onto Boomy though to really land those slams, but we have seen him perform before.
Well, Natsumi also has the Necro 1 book up. Decent timing, 12.5 minutes. So the tools are starting to come together for Geek Fam, but not for Geek Fam, for ADROIT, but Geek Fam do smoke up. CML, easy target, Zephyr, will just hook shot, claim the kill. Wolfball will be popped by the Lycan. They're going to find this boss. He's coming in. Bishop is also there. Peter managed to really block them in, and now the Will-O-Wisp to be dropped, and they just can't retaliate.
Dire's has been killed.
In fact, why is not Sumi's courier there? He made Miss Micro at the courier with the rest of his creeps. I know personally, John, I do that quite a lot when I play Lunkin, and he unfortunately left it near Cuckoo.
Well, not too big of a loss for him. I mean, he already got his Necro 1. It is going to delay the timing of the other items just a touch, but not too bad there. Overall, GEEK Fam didn't find the biggest heroes to kill. They only really found CML. They might be able to find Boomy, but he does just walk away. Although a lot of heroes from GEEK Fam trying to move up.
Looks like they want that bottom tier 1 tower. Just get every outer tower from the side of the droid. With another blast, we know it's very, very quick. Chain's gonna be out on Boomy, now Zephyr will rotate in. They'll get the cogs off with the battery assault. Nice to the Malice. Raven doesn't have another chains, but they do get the Earthshaker. And now you know there's no way to defend. The only thing is, they are losing their mid tier 1, but Cuckoo will rotate as the Underlord. He'll have Carl to follow up, and they will defend successfully.
Dire's bottom
Yeah, they managed to defend that tier 1. They're going to be able to find that tier 1 down. But that combination coming out from GEEK Fam, the cogs into the pit, is just so strong. You can't run out if you don't have a blink. You're just going to be pretty much stuck twice over.
Mac avoiding chains coming out from Raven. Very, very close call. It's like Raven's going to go for a bit of a reset. They are going to stick around. They still want the other bottom tier 1, and it's almost down anyway. One more as well to do it. They'll try to go for deny, but they'll be unsuccessful. And now a nice bit of Malice coming in. Decrepify from Carl onto bot. And man, that's a lot of damage from that Firestorm. Now Natsumi will form up. Where's he going? He's going after Zephyr. Echo being committed by Boomy onto 1. They're going to throw everything to get this clockwork. And they're going to try and rotate into the mid-tier 1 tower after that. I believe GEEK Fam should be able to defend, and yeah, Cuckoo's here.
They found a kill. You're going to take that pick off. It definitely is, but they're going to whatever they can get. You are slowly inching to that blink, right? Boomy's just about 30 gold away, so he basically has that blink dagger up. Won't be able to echo slam because he had to expend it, but you have a big tool here for a droid, although he is probably going to die here.
I don't think he minds. Like, he got the blink now. It's probably why they were so desperate to save him that last time the Zephyr was after. They just couldn't afford to delay the blink any longer. At least now that he has it, you know, he can actually help out. Nice chains on the clock. She is pretty low. Life Drain won't be enough, but Remnant's forward. She doesn't have blink. Global Assault will be committed. Will not allow it. Will he get punished for this? He does. Chains coming out. Carl should be able to blow him up. And does drain the life out of him. And now I realise, by the way, why the damage from Firestorm was so high. Carl has plus fail. And so Firestorm really does a lot of damage.
Oh,
Bob jumps in.
On the deep
one we talked about. And now Zephyr, he found Boomy. So you're going to have no real backup here from the Earthshaker who's just trying to run away. The real risk is going to come out. Boomy is still being chased down. The Revenant's forward. They do get the kill. Matt, you've got to get out of there. Raven has chains again. He will chain him up. Carl, can you blow him up in time? Not quite. He will be able to blink out. Now they try and turn this one. But can you really do it? Natsumi has joined the Dark Ritual. Zephyr, Cuckoo. They'll lose Raven. Can they get out? Cuckoo, he's so close to dying, but he does get him out. Still, you're not going to be too happy about losing Raven like that. It does end up ultimately being a 1-for-1 trade. A droid shouldn't be too upset.
Yeah, they still found a couple of nice kills. They didn't manage to get the duel win. I want to point out something. Decrept right as the LC started duel. That was just really quick of a tap from him, knowing that he was going to get jumped. And they aren't finding any real wins on the LC. They only have one win so far at 17 minutes in. Not the best start. So they're mitigating that from GEEK Fam. You would have to be a bit more careful with Raven. He is going for a Desolator build, actually. So just full right-click build from our Ember. No defensive items just yet. I'd like to see a fast move.
Boss getting caught in the cogs. Peter Mal's going to hold down Matt, but he'll be fine. Now Natsumi getting a lot of ATOS stuff by Cuckoo. Matt, he will find Zephyr. Not to the end. Boomy! He connects on two. It's a lot of damage. And that's what we were waiting for from ADROIT. And they will go after T1 now. Peter Malice, Carl, that is not safe. Global Silence comes out, Boomy right in front, gets a triple kill on the Earthshaker. He'll go after Zephyr. He does get the Fisher, but it's on the wrong side still. Moving forward, he wants Cuckoo. He does get the Unlord, and this should be a full team wipe. Boomy is looping around. They'll give Mac a double and a full team wipe for ADROIT. Off the back of the Echo Slam coming out from this Earthshaker.
That investment into Boomy cost them a lot early on. They were bleeding some space. Comes right back out. This is what we see from ADROIT every single time they go for this kind of draft. A much greedier sort of draft with Boomy. They just wait out that period, try to ride through that wave, and then suddenly you have this huge playmaking support that gets things done for you. So GEEK fam, they've got to be a lot more careful. They've got to respect the potential ADROIT has now. And ADROIT off the back of that, 6k lead and a Roshan.
GEEK fam, they smoked up, they're gonna move in, they're still going for the team fight. They know Shapeshift isn't available as well as Global Silence, but they're not able to find anybody. And I do agree with your sentiment, John. Like, if Boomy is not, if you don't know where the man is and what he's doing, you can't fight. It's just way too dangerous. We saw Zephyr, he's constantly trying to keep eyes out onto Boomy, but when Zephyr dies like that, the fight should just be over for GEEK fam, it seems.
Yeah, they rely a lot on the disruptiveness of this clock to find anything. They get scanned out and trying to get that rotation off as well, so GEEK fam not going to be able to punish. I love seeing this coming out from Boomy though. Look at that Shaker just building into the BKB immediately. Just, he's basically not a support. He's just a core. It's like a 4-core lineup for ADROIT.
We can't afford to be stopped by the clock, and you know suddenly ADROIT has an 8k net worth lead. That was fast. Raven gets caught out. They have the silence there from Matt. Sonic Wave immediately comes down with the Wisp. They tried to save. It will be no good. And Matt wants more. He saw Cuckoo. He wants his Unlord. Dark Rift immediately. Meanwhile, Zephyr ends up losing his life. Looks like Bob committed Jewel. Does get the victory. They lost CML, but you'd love the Jewel victory over the Silencer anyway. Carl got a TP out in front of them, but Cuckoo again is the target they really want as a nice hoof stomp comes out from Natsumi's dominated creep, and it looks like Cuckoo will eventually melt. And now ADROIT, they are looking significantly scarier.
Yeah, they keep finding the favorable trades. They managed to melt through these towers after each trade. You do have the fortify up for GEEK fam, so that will slow down the push. But that's not really going to stop a Lycan. They're going to be able to find this tier 2. And the map is slowly but surely shrinking now for GEEK fam after... Well, they weren't really in a huge net worth lead for a while. It did feel like they had that early momentum. They have kind of bled that out. It's their turn to really start to build back up. You take a look at Raven. He's trying to go for the full right-click build on that Ember. I believe he has his Desolator, which should be coming out at some point from his courier. Or no, he's actually just skipping that Desolator, going straight for Battle Fury first.
I'm surprised his farm is so low. He was doing so well before, and now he's just so far behind. I wonder if they'll find Bok in the tree line right now, just kind of standing there chilling out. They won't. Bok will be fine. GEEK fam, you can tell they're playing a lot more cautiously now. They're being very hesitant as to where they go. You can't really blame them for that. Matt activates a double damage rune and still has the Aegis and wants to move in right now for a team fight. And they see Carl. Zephyr will break the smoke. Silence immediate from Matt and a nice Fisher from Boomy to set up. Boomy will show himself, and it's worth it if they find the clock kill. They just feel safer across the map without it.
Gives them a lot more to work with. You're not going to have that scouting potential from GEEK fam. You got to point something out as well. Boomy shifts out from the BKB straight into the Ags. 2 parts in, 2 parts left. Once you have that Ags up on the Shaker, it just becomes so much easier to get that long-range initiation.
Right, like he doesn't need a BKB once the answer's up.
No.
It's basically solving the same problem as now they do find Carl, but Fisher doesn't connect. And everyone runs into the Pit of Malice. So they get nothing. But they will head down bot. Objectives are more important than kills anyway. With the 11k net worth lead, ADROIT should not be stopped.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
But Geek fam, they are going to start looping around. They've smoked
Radiant's
up.
bottom tower has
It's a
fallen.
very scary team fight for them to take. And it may not be worthwhile, but what a hook coming up from Zephyr. Great cards in the three. CML already dead. Boss going very, very low. Also Nines and now the Dark Group. They want to go for Furby. He found the Echo. Two go down immediately to Matt. The Dark Group is there, but they left Carl. In fact, they left Raven as well. Cuckoo. That is not a 5-star rating, sir. You forgot your passengers behind. Raven gonna be slowly chased down. The Purge is there. Nice from the back, but look who's waiting. Boomy knows.
Oh man. Boomy. With that slam, just really turning it there. It looked bad. They got two heroes off the bat, ADROIT. They clumped up with CML and Bach. Rapidly solved it up. Not enough for Geek fam. Those weren't the heroes they had control. You really have to try to find Boomy. And they clump up once more, get punished hard. And ADROIT, coming out now with a 13k lead, are able to push once again down mid.
It's only getting worse.
Are scanning.
So they're just seemingly running out of options, Geek fam. Like they still have great high ground defense, but not if Boomy keeps doing what he's doing. They're gonna catch out Matt. Doesn't matter, won't lock him in now with the BKB bomb. He'll move forward. He does have a duel available, but doesn't quite find anybody to get off on. And it seems as though they just want to take a team fight while Echo is not available. But they don't get anything out of it.
They're just not finding the right targets. Zephyr is kind of forced to be in the spot all by himself. I think one big part that's playing into this with Geek Fam speed is that with Raven's build, they just have nothing to do right now. They do not have the damage on Raven. They need to wait for him to finish that Battle Fury. Even then, that's probably not going to be enough. The damage output from that Battle Fury isn't going to shoot him up as much as a Maelstrom would with really good procs. So whether or not that fixes the issues remains to be seen.
Not Sumi. Be a fantastic target for them to find. Wolfform will be popped. He's actually going to turn around. Carl is baiting right now. Natsumi pops his BKB. Carl going to be attacked. Where is the... What?
They left.
They dark ripped it. And Carl just says, ha ha ha.
Even left.
So they baited. And then they just left. They're just like, yeah, Carl, go, go, go. Trust me, we're going to back you up. Meanwhile, Cuckoo's just heating up the car. Getting ready. Just warming up the engine.
Oh god, that's just gonna get ADROIT to take this tier 2 at last. All outer towers gone for Geek Fam. Options are getting severely limited. Why did they leave him? Why? It's just a bit of a prank. It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank.
Goodness gracious me.
Oh,
Cuckoo getting a caught by the jewel. This is not good news. The hook shot, Zephyr, a very nice one. Locks two in the comms, but where's Boomy? He's right below them waiting. Fisher will not be there in time. They lose Cuckoo anyway.
you don't get the dual win, so that's a positive for Geek Fam. They lost Cuckoo, but no dual win going the way of ADROIT, so Bach isn't as fully damaging. I don't think it matters too much at this point. Look at that. Boomy has his Ags up. So, yeah, here we go. Should be much easier for him.
Echo's available as well. See who has buybacks. Apparently only the Pugma and Cody have buybacks on Geek Fam, so this is going to be disastrous if ADROIT win this. But Mac falls too low, pops his BKB, and doesn't want to be involved any longer. He leaves. They are still waiting around though. Mac will make his way back relatively quick, spamming Blink. The droid, they kind of drew out a line saying, let's go again, but Geek Fam are the ones to smoke Raven. I don't know about this Raven, he will run it away. Does get silenced immediately by CML. Geek Fam still looking around, but you're trying to take a very bad engagement, fighting off that high ground. And now they'll chase down Mac, but they can't quite catch him in time. And Zephyr will keep rotating. Meanwhile, the droids show themselves a mid. And TPs. Bot. Fisher doesn't connect on cast, so they won't get the duel off. Still going to be moving forward. There's no fear in the world. Enchant Totem, he is jumping to 4 heroes. The Cuckoo is going again. He does not want to be involved in this. Not while that guy's around.
They waste some time from ADROIT. So this is some fascinating use of Dark Rift, just constantly baiting the enemy team in. That is going to give ADROIT Roshan though. Like, you're not going to get there in time. This Rosh is going to go the way of ADROIT. Second Rosh of the game, Aegis and Cheese. Going their way, so you've got a lot to deal with now for Geek Fam in the next defense. Spotted out the flare, no one really around to stop it.
Into the brutality.
Oh, goodness me. Good. Nice bit of malice preemptively to stop Matt, but there'll be another blink in a second. Meanwhile, there are some very fast units running. Trying to find the Sunderlord. Instead, they find Carl. And this poor partner, Chat Totems, finish it, and give him the yeah. Carl's lost it. He's absolutely lost it.
He's turning into the sacrificial lamb where we kind of expected him to be the guy giving ADROIT space. I mean, not giving ADROIT space, giving Geek Fam space with the towers. And he hasn't been able to. They just haven't been able to really pressure out. It's Zephyr that's, for some reason, split farming.
Matsumi will take the bottom tier 3, and now it looks like it's going to be a 3 rats as he defend. To the Malice, good shot, Zephyr trying to go in, but Global Silence is immediate. And ADROIT continued pursuing the rats. Max still has the Aegis, by the way, also just got it. Now Bob gets the duel off, there is going to be the Crepify onto Zephyr, Max jumps in. It's going to be that there's quickly the team might coming out from Geek Fam, but where's the damage? They're still trying to go after DLC, Max is still alive, he does finally go down to Raven and they do get popped. They need to really capitalize off this. Chains again, Matt, BKB's up and they're going back in. There goes Zephyr. Still not backing off ADROIT, now they finally will, but this feels like a bit of bait. Geek Fam will not group up, they won't fall for that same trap. And ADROIT, they've had enough, they got the rats they came for, they back out.
They at least expend the Aegis on Mac, so they're not going to have that in the next engagement. They do still have the cheese up on Natsumi, but you know, Geek Fam does somehow defend, like they hold on to their range racks down bot, and they do manage to find themselves 1 kill. So that is going to help the cause. Not quite bouncing them back in any big way, like it's still a 20k deficit in favor of ADROIT, but they have gotten themselves some breathing room to get out of their base, find a little bit of farm. You do finally see, Raven's going for the Divine on Ember.
I just saw. Battle Fury Divine Rapier. Raven, that's his answer.
It's so risky though.
I mean, you're going to lose the game with this rate, aren't you? You're 20k behind.
Oh.
Poor Whiteman. Well, that's a big hit from Bernie. That is a lot of damage from one totem. Meanwhile, bot finds Zephyr at the bot lane. 2-0 trade coming out for ADROIT, and they tried to go after Carl, but he does manage to TP out on the cliff.
Illusion.
I think that's the only answer. answer. Like, maybe in the Divine Battlefield, you could actually do something.
The issue is, like, as an Ember Spirit, if you go Divine here, there's Global Silence, and then you just don't do anything.
Big shot, wrong side, but the Chant Totem will allow him to bounce through. Matt, again, just wants Carl and does get the kill. Now Raven, he's going to move back in. The buyback is there from Cuckoo. They are going to try and slow down ADROIT's push attempt. Cheese was eaten, I believe, by the Quap. And ADROIT are playing very cautiously, like considering how far ahead they are, it looks like they are just satisfied with the fact that Cuckoo brought back.
They're not willing to take a risk. They understand if they do bleed out some space, and we did see some of that control from GEEK Fam in play. When you get the Will-O-Wisp off, the pit down, the cogs out, it can be a lot to deal with. ADROIT hasn't really gotten all too many defensive items. At least it's only the two cores that really have them. Everyone else is going to be very vulnerable, and you really need Boomy to just run around and do his thing, so he's saving up for his BKB next. But there is still a lot of potential from GEEK Fam. You don't want to run that risk, and this is giving GEEK Fam a little bit more time. Like, Raven is inching closer towards that Divine, just about 1.3 away.
Boomy's caught Zephyr. Zephyr just, again, split pushing the lanes as the clockwork, and that's all we can really do right now. He will probably just die. Mac will be the one to pick up the kill. Nothing else he could have done. Wolf form again going to be popped by Natsumi. It looks like he does find light, but he does find light. It does not matter. Ooh, that's a hell of a lot of damage. And now, down the bot lane, there's still one Raindrax. They are defending, but the Raindrax does finally drop. And mid lane, the push does come in now from Bot and CML. Mac will be there to join. They want to force more buybacks out. What are they got? Let's see who's first off. They want to go after that play to Carl, but he is still out of range though to get the duel off. Just really good time. Will-O-Wisp has been dropped. Do you have damage output though? Raven's trying with double sleight of fist, but he doesn't really do that much damage. They want Boomy, still 3 trapped in there, but 0 damage.
They just can't follow up. They need the Pugna around to lay some damage on with the Nether Blast and the Decrep to amp that up, but there's just nothing. He doesn't have buyback, Carl, so he's just stuck in that position there. He did just finish up his Dagons. So he finished his Dagons to lose his buyback. If he dies again after this respawn, it could be a spot of trouble for ADROIT. They might figure out that he doesn't actually have the spare gold.
I hate to break it to you, John, they're in more than a spot of trouble right now. 26k behind. Zephyr just gonna hook shot some creeps. Trying to, oh my, that wasn't a good idea. They have some strong creeps. But they're not gonna clear them out. That is a lot of gold. And I believe all that gold basically went to Raven, who is very close now to finishing off the Divine Rapier. Now,
Yeah, there you go.
In fairness, I think he still needs a Daedalus or another Divine if he really intends to be... No?
No, yeah. He definitely does. It is lacking. I'd say even with just this, your damage output's not going to be amazing. He is at risk. Global Signs comes out. He doesn't have a BKB. He will probably die. He queues up another Divine. Necessary. This might surprise ADROIT. They might be punished.
Well, you do have double sleight of fist with the coil, so again, I don't know if it's enough damage yet, but with double sleight of fist, as long as he sits back and doesn't get caught by the silence, doesn't get caught by the silent device that the Queen of Pain now has, he should be okay.
Yeah, just have to really temper how far you push it. Just a lot of caution still has to be there. There's just so many ways for ADROIT to punish Ember with no defensive items, right? That's basically what Raven's boiled down to. He is saving up for a Crystallis instead, so probably looking at the Daedalus build-up.
I think it's more value, right? Like, even if you just had a Crystallis, like...
Just amps it up more. Yeah, you have a lot more potential. It's a bit more cost-effective. Although, a Divine's always nice, you know, I mean, saying that, but I do love the numbers, the raw numbers a Divine brings, the consistency of it. It's much more pleasing to see, but it's not about being pleased.
It's more. No. Droid are just hanging around, just being patient, waiting for a nice pick-off. Carl will move forward, but Bok will not be in range for the Blink Jewel. By the way, Boomy does have a full BKB up now. He just needs to bring it out on his courier. So there's that. Not really going to protect him from Raven's damage output.
No, but something else that ADROIT it can potentially wait for, level 25 talent on Mac. He is at 24, a bit away. Like, it's still going to take a little bit of time, but once you get that Scream of Pain Fear, your AoE control is suddenly that much stronger.
On the alternate end of things, Raven could get 2 Sleight of Fist charges with his level 25 talent, plus the Keeper of the Light recharge. So, theoretically, 3 Sleight of Fist charges.
It's still going to be a while, though. Raven is unfortunately at 19. So there's a lot more for him. It's that point in the game where they're just so far behind. 30k behind in that for it.
That's dangerous. Risky plays to try and get more gold up, but Carl does get caught by the Fisher and Chant Totem. Not gonna land. Carl tips it. I don't know if this is the time, Carl.
Oh man. It's time for the slow game, right? This is the point where ADROIT's gonna be super cautious about taking these objectives. At the same time, GEEK fam will have to play cautiously because they've got a bit of a bomb in that Ember. So they just have to wait for whoever missteps first. And whoever missteps first is going to be punished hard by either side.
Level 20, he's going to get the plus 60 Sleight of Fist hero damage. A bit more value on the Sleight of Fist now, even more damage to come out. A little bit concerning when you can't clear out the creeps, but that's fine. Just a Divine Rapier that he has. I think that's
Tier 4 items are going out.
Sure, but how are GEEK fam going to get them?
I mean, it's for ADROIT. it's Tier 4 items for ADROIT are coming out.
They're 30.
I mean, there's a Divine. They've got to be careful about that Divine, though.
Worthy tribute.
You know, a lot of caution.
GEEK fam running out of patience. Okay, Boomy will be a really nice kill right now, and they do hook shot. Couldn't manage to do it again. They need to lock him down as much as possible, but the BKB. 5 heroes could not kill off the possible Earthshaker.
And yeah, that's Roche with the Ags dropped as well. That does go to Mac. So you have that lower cooldown, higher damage Sonic Wave coming out, just allowing him to apply a lot more damage as it drags on. And you have the 25 pound on Mac. So there you go. That fear on the Scream of Pain.
I don't think they can defend this GEEK fam. Like, they couldn't kill the Earthshaker by himself. How are you going to defend high ground against the Aegis and everything else?
Well, they've finished up the Crystallis now. I don't think Raven had that last time. At least when they were jumping Boomy. So he does have a chance to crit. That could be big. He is saving up for a second Divine Rapier as well. They're going to have the time to get that up. But again, ADROIT is taking her time. 42k net worth lead, though, at 42 minutes in. That's just huge.
It is. That's what that looks like. Dota Plus is... You know what? Dota Plus is giving them a 3% chance of winning on GEEK fam. So it's not over until it's over. But gonna move in, doesn't get the jewel, and does use his BKB. That was a 10-second charge. Natsumi also committing the loose ball. Does jump in with the Abyss. He comes out with a huge Sonic Wave and a global silence. GEEK fam still surviving, but how much longer? Raven couldn't do anything during that global. Now Cuckoo's gonna drop. Sleight of Fist tickles them. Literally tickles them, John. It did no damage.
No, you really need to combine that with a Cobble him. He has no buyback.
Oh no. Now Jewel comes out. They caught. Is that the end of their court? They have Raven drop. Divine is on the deck. Oh! 30 again. He just puts the lid on this game. He's had enough. That'll be it, boys. GG is full. Looks like Carl has some fun leaking on the whole time.
I mean, he was always the target very early on for ADROIT, and ADROIT, after a very weak start in lane, they were never too far behind, to be fair. Geek fam were applying some pressure, didn't manage to find enough objectives, didn't really manage to win out while ADROIT